Hello, dear friends. Today we shall talk about how to teach grammar. You know that the questions of English language teaching touch many points and many aspects of different points of language. And you know that we should study how to teach listening, how to teach reading, how to teach writing, and how to teach speaking. But before we start talking about all these activities in English language, we should understand how to teach three main aspects of English language, and they are grammar, phonetics, and vocabulary. Today we shall start with the question of how to teach grammar. So, while we are talking about this question, we should understand two main points. The first one is difficulties in studying and mastering grammar, and the second one, how to choose the approach for studying English grammar. So let's start with the difficulties. The question of difficulties in studying and mastering English grammar touches two main aspects: interlanguage interference and intralanguage interference. But before we start talking about interlanguage interference and intralanguage interference, we should understand what the meaning of interference is. Interference is defined as changes in grammatical forms, patterns, relationships, and functions that occur as a result of speech contacts. So, let's start talking about interlanguage interference. What do we mean by this point? Interlanguage interference is the activity or the point which touches two languages. For example, the native language, Russian one, and the studied language, English language, for example. So what do we mean by this meaning? Interlanguage interference means that two, for example, aspects of different languages can be mixed in our understanding and in our understanding the grammatical system of languages. For example, we have the tense form, which is present perfect in English language. And of course, we don't have such an activity, such a meaning in English language. For example, past simple. And sometimes these two meanings and these two verb forms can be mixed. And students sometimes do not understand how to define the past simple and the present perfect, because in our native language, Russian one, we do not have such a category, unfortunately. That's why they can be mixed. And this is the question of interlanguage interference. This is the main difficulty. So the question of interlanguage interference touches the question of the activities, of the aspects and categories under the one language, for example, the English one. And let's take an example with tense forms again. For example, past simple, we know how to use it, but we do not understand how to use the present perfect form. And sometimes students mix these two rules and these two meanings. They do not understand how two actions can be defined, because the action in past simple and the action in present perfect happen in the past. And for our understanding, for our meaning, it's quite difficult not to mix these two verb forms. So, now we understand what the interlanguage interference means and what intralanguage interference means too. Let's come to the second question, which I mentioned in the beginning. How to choose the right approach for teaching grammar? Well, when we are talking about the approach and when we are talking about the question of choosing it, we should understand four main aspects. The first one, we should understand about the age of a group we are going to study. So it can be the primary school, the secondary school, and the senior classes. And the category of age influences our choice of the approach. So the second point is conditions of study. So what do we mean by the conditions of study? We mean that the number of people in the class, for example, we mean the whole organization of the studying process, and even we mean the climate conditions pupils live in. Because if pupils live in the hot countries or in the cold countries, everything influences the approach how to teach this or that aspect. This is very important one. The second point, teacher's view, also influences the choice. For example, the teacher has a right what to choose and what to study and which approach to find out for this or that situation of studying. And the last one is the rules. So it means that we should understand what kind of a grammar material we should teach and how this material can be understood by our listeners, by our students or by our pupils. All these 4 points are very important and they influence the choice of the approach for teaching grammar. So, dear friends, today we talked about 2 main questions of studying grammar, and they are difference and difficulty, about the interlanguage and interlanguage interference, and the approach we should choose while studying English grammar. Thank you very much. See you later.